What's up guys, it's the Sound Alchemist, and today I am bringing you 40 facts and lore on one of my personal favorite topics in all of Warhammer 40k. Today, I am giving you 40 facts on the psychic powers of the Space Marines. I will be going through each discipline and each psychic power, so without further ado, let's dive into this lore. The Space Marine Librarians are among the most powerful of all of mankind's Psychers. Every one is a master of two worlds, Bolter and Sword, and the Warp. Though this power is sufficient enough to bring victory on the battlefield, it does come with a significant risk. Each time a Psyker draws forth power from the Warp, they expose themselves to the malevolent energies that reside there. A Psyker who hasn't been trained to either obscure or defend themselves from these forces can become killed, or worse, possessed by demons, and then they can use these psychic powers to destroy millions of lives. Oftentimes, a rift portal is opened in real space, and a whole sector can be sucked into the Warp. Therefore, each Space Marine Librarian must undergo rigorous training throughout their lives, constantly reinforcing both their mind and their bodies. Librarians are feared across the galaxy because of this. They can summon forth searing flame, bolts of lightning, and can even project protective barriers for themselves and their allies. Some librarians can even control the minds of others. So without further ado, I bring you the many disciplines of these librarians. The Biomancy Discipline. Biomancers specialize in manipulating biological energy and process this power with their minds. They are masters of the flesh, learning to shape and influence the physical forms of themselves, their allies, and their enemies, all according to their will. Iron Arm. By transmuting his flesh into living metal, the Biomancer can wade through enemy fire unscathed and pulp skulls with his bare fists. Enfeeble. As the Psyker channels his powers, tendrils of warp energy lash over his victims, every caress sapping strength and vitality from their bodies. Leech Life. With a twist of his gnarled hands, the wrathful Psyker rips the life force from his enemy, hoarding the stolen essence and using it to restore the injured flesh of his allies. Warp Speed. The powers of the Immaterium flow into the Psyker, heightening his speed to supernatural levels. He is a blur amongst his enemies, killing the unrighteous with blows too swift to be seen. Endurance. Reaching into the essence of his allies, the Biomancer knits together bones, heals flesh, and banishes fatigue so that they can carry on the fight for humanity. Hemorrhage. Focusing his mutant mind, the Psyker reaches forth and sets a fire within his victim's flesh. Within moments, the unfortunate foe's blood begins to boil in its own veins, tearing him asunder as it bursts from every pore. The Divination Discipline. Diviners seek to discern the hidden past of the galaxy and know the course of events yet to come. These abilities allow diviners to look into the twisting strands of the Immaterium in search of the answers that they seek, sometimes even influence the outcome of fate itself. Foreboding. Thanks to his warp-gifted insights, the Psyker and his allies are aware that their foes are about to charge, even before the foes themselves have even realized it. Forewarning. The Psyker's prophetic powers allow him to walk through a hail of fire unscathed, dodging incoming bullets with an eerie calm. Perfect timing. As soon as his consciousness pierces the veil of the Warp, a rush of images flood into his mind, foretelling the actions of his enemies down to the merest microsecond. Armed with this information, the Diviner's allies can predict exactly when their foes will peer out from behind cover and expose themselves to the lethal headshot. Prescience. The Psyker can easily predict the paths of bullets and swords. By focusing his warp sight even more closely, he can guide his allies' aim, bringing a swift and merciless death to their foes. Precognition. Having already witnessed the one true path to victory, the diviner strides across the battlefield like an avenging god of war. While this power is in effect, he is all but undefeatable, proof against bullet and bolt, blade and bombardment. However, should his self-wrought prophecies fade, or even turn false, he will be doomed to die a very ghastly death. Misfortune. With a click of his fingers, the diviner twists fate so that his followers' blows punch through the weakest points in their opponent's armor. The Squires Gaze. The diviner can see the battlefield clearly in his mind's eye, with the vantage point of a hunting hawk and the precision of a laser. The to and fro of armies and war machines is but the scurrying of ants beneath his omniscient gaze. Thus, he can direct the deployment of specialist forces exactly when and where they are most needed, directing them to vital objectives that, once secured, will ensure victory. The Demonology Discipline. Demonologists study all things to do with chaos and the warp. They can manipulate the interactions between the immaterium and real space, allowing them to manifest all manner of destructive powers and amazing feats. However, demonology is the most difficult and dangerous of any discipline to master, and many who have tried perish. They have been driven insane, or even have been irredeemably corrupted by the very power they once sought to use against the forces of chaos. Banishment. The Seikar bends his will to dissolve the bonds that tether the demon to the mortal plane, casting them back into the warp. The Gate of Infinity. The Seikar punches a corridor through the rolling immaterium, allowing him to cross great distances in the blink of an eye. Hammerhand. Focusing the raging power of his mind, the Seikar augments the strength of his comrade to the point where they can crush flesh and bone with a single blow. Sanctuary. Chanting words of warding, the Seikar creates a zone of light around him that can both protect him from harm and repel demonic forces. Purge the Soul. The Seikar draws upon every ounce of willpower he possesses to purge the evil of his foe's soul, scouring every trace of corruption, even if it destroys them in the process. The Cleansing Flame. The Seikar harnesses the very fire in his soul, creating a wall of white-hot psychic flame that blasts forth and purges the foes from the battlefield. The Vortex of Doom. The Seikar rends the material realm asunder, tearing a rift between the material realm and the howling destruction of the warp, condemning his foes to total destruction. The Malefic Powers. Summoning. The Seikar completes a vile ritual that echoes through the immaterium, summoning vile demons into the mortal realm. Cursed Earth. The Seikar becomes a conduit through which the energies of the warp flow, tainting the very ground and sustaining the demons that walk upon it. The Dark Flame. The Seikar projects a ball of psychic flame that emulates his foes' souls as well as their bodies. The Infernal Gaze. Unholy power streams forth from the Seikar's eyes, charring and melting all flesh, metal, and stone caught in its sight. Sacrifice. The Seikar sacrifices one of his followers' souls to summon forth one of the Chaos God's most trusted servants. Incursion. The Seikar opens a portal to the realm of chaos, through which the demonic legions spill into the mortal plane. Possession. The Psyker sacrifices his own soul, and a greater demon of chaos hungrily possesses him, bursting forth from the host's body in an explosion of psychic energy. The Discipline of Pyromancy. A pyromancer is a master of fire and flame, a psyker who is able to create searing infernos out of thin air. Pyromancy is one of the most spectacular and destructive forms of psychic ability, and those that face a pyromancer in combat are often reduced to naught but a pile of charred bone. The Flame Breath. A torrent of psychic fire pours forth from the psyker's eyes and mouth, engulfing the target. Fiery Form. Bullets and shells pass straight through the pyromancer as he transforms into an incandescent being of living warp fire, striking out at his foes and setting their very souls ablaze. The Shield of Fire. With a sweep of his arms, the psyker throws up a towering wall of flame to protect his allies. Spontaneous Combustion. Focusing his anger, the pyromancer can melt or incinerate his foe in a heartbeat. Yet, while his rage boils, the unfortunate victim's body explodes in a blast of ash. Who can say how many will fall victim to this wrath until he is sated? The Sunburst. The psyker sings a wild song whose notes were old when the universe was young. As he does so, an incandescent aura appears about him, growing ever brighter and hotter with every second. Only when the song is ended does the aura explode, discharging its pent-up fury in a sudden supernova flash. Inferno. With an impatient gesture, the psyker sets the air itself aflame, creating a whirling pillar of fire to sweep through the ranks of his enemies. The Molten Beam. The pyromancer claps his hands together and turns them outward towards his foe. As he does so, a white-hot beam of blazing energy bursts from his palms. It melts armor to slag and vaporizes flesh, leaving only ghastly shadows in its wake. The Telekinesis Discipline. These psykers are able to manipulate the material world with the power of their minds, translating sheer mental power into physical force. These psykers can lash their foes with potent psychic energy, erect invisible force fields, and even levitate above the battlefield. Assail. Using nothing but the power of his mind, the psyker tears a boulder of rock from the ground and hurls it at the foe. Crush. By reaching out his arm and clenching his fist, the psyker entraps his foe in a choking and crushing mass of force. Gritting his teeth, the psyker continues the assault until flesh, armor, and bone are all ground to mere powder. Abjuration Mechanicum. Weapons jam and engines seize up as the psyker uses his powers to wrench and twist the inner workings of the heart of nearby machinery. Shockwave. The psyker slams his palms together and the noise is magnified 100-fold, releasing a shockwave that snaps bones and knocks foes from their feet. Levitation. The psyker uses his telekinetic powers to launch himself skyward, leaping across the battlefield in a single bound. The Telekinetic Dome. Bullets bounce off of thin air and are deflected harmlessly away as the psyker erects a barrier of shimmering energy around himself. The Psychic Maelstrom. The telekinetic psyker focuses his entire mental might into creating a vast maelstrom of destructive power, unleashing a storm of psychic energies that utterly consume his foes. The Psychic Discipline of Telepathy. Telepaths are psykers whose mental expertise lies with contracting and controlling the minds of others. With a single thought, a telepath can blast away his foe's sanity, induce states of numbing terror, or possess his victim's thoughts and mold their actions into his own. The Psychic Shriek. The Seikar breathes in deeply and the power of the warp flows within him. He emits a banshee-like howl of psychic energy that shreds the minds of all the enemies before him. Dominate. The Seikar reaches into his foe's mind, traumatizing his soul and crushing his will to fight on. Mental Fortitude. Despair is turned into fresh hope, and even heroism as the Seikar projects inspiring thoughts into the minds of his allies. Terrify. Even the bravest of heroes quake in terror as the telepath assails them with images from their deepest, darkest nightmares. Shrouding. The Seikar uses his mastery of the warp to fog the minds of his enemies, clouding their sight and instincts so that he appears as nothing more than an indistinct shadow. Invisibility. The Seikar twists and turns, obscuring the perceptions of his foes to the point that he becomes completely invisible to them. Hallucination. Paranoia, confusion, and panic are all heightened to a debilitating degree as the telepath alters his foe's perceptions. And with that, we have the first part of the psychic powers of the Space Marine completed. Let me know what was your favorite psychic power. Mine was definitely the Gate of Infinity. There's nothing better to me than instantly teleporting wherever you need to be. And as always guys, don't forget to comment and like this video for more epic 40k content. Head on over to our Patreon page, where a simple $1 that you guys pledge can lead a long way towards giving you more epic 40k content. I am the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I am signing out.